You should wait before buying any of these Yu-Gi-Oh cards. What's Boshin? You got Matt here, and welcome back to another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today we're talking about cards that you should not be buying right now. Now, some of these cards are going to be cards that are seeing a lot of play in the game today. Some are for possible future reasons, but a lot of the time the reason why we decide not to buy cards is because either they fall out of the game or because we're expecting reprints in upcoming weeks. So if you're excited to find out which cards you shouldn't be buying, then make sure to smash the like button. If this video hits 250 likes, and I'll bring you the ultimate guide to cards that you should be buying for this upcoming format. Also, if you like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, including deck profiles, guides on how to beat the best decks, meta discussions, and videos just like this one, you're gonna love this channel. So make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers and we can't get there without your help. But with that being said, don't buy these Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So before I talk about the cards that you should not be buying, I wanted to give you a quick disclaimer. The cards I talk about not buying in this video are based off of my opinion. I'm going to be giving you a reason for each of those opinions as to why I think it makes sense to hold off on buying these cards. But if you want to buy them for any reason at all, go for it. No one should tell you how to play or not play Yu-Gi-Oh or what cards you should or shouldn't buy. This is just going to be a suggestion and that's it. And I will be going over some predictions as well, and if I end up being right, great. If I'm wrong, then so be it. It happens. That's the beauty of predictions. You're going to get some right, you're going to get some wrong. It's one thing for me to spit out a card name for no particular reason, and it's a whole other story if I give you a card and a reasoning behind it. Oh, and obviously this video is more for players who are on a budget because they have to make some smarter, more difficult decisions to make when it comes to buying certain cards and being smart with their purchases. Now, that isn't to say that if you have a higher budget to spend on the game that you should be buying these cards right away. Most of you are going to have access to a lot of these cards anyways. But if you are a budget player, I'm going to give you the reasoning why you should hold off on these cards. There are going to be three parts to this discussion. The first part is going to be based off of cards that are going to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2. The second are for cards that are very likely to be impacted by the ban list in some way or another, whether directly or indirectly. And the final part is going to be based off of predictions for reprints or for cards that are currently expensive or hard to obtain. And of course, there are still going to be some cards that might be on this list for multiple different reasons. For example, maybe we have a card that's slated to be reprinted in the Rarity Collection 2, but is also a very likely ban list hit as well. It can definitely be here for multiple options. Alright, let's talk about Rarity Collection 2, the sequel to what is arguably the best set of all time. Rarity Collection 2 is being released on May 22nd, 2024, which is only about 2 months away. And we all saw how hyped and excited everyone was for Rarity Collection 1. And this set may not be as good, but definitely has the potential to be an even better set than before. And the reason why is because Rarity Collection 1 was an import from the OCG. We took the same 80 cards minus Max C from them and brought it over to the TCG. But Rarity 2, on the other hand, is a completely new TCG product. As of today, these 35 cards have been confirmed to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2. Now, some of these cards have their alt art printings, and we don't know if they're going to include both the alt art and the original art. But for some, like Appaloosa and IP Masquerena, based on the wording from the Yu-Gi-Oh website, it's expected that it's only going to be the alt art for those cards specifically. Now, obviously, because of the release of Rarity Collection 2, all of these cards are going to have significantly lower prices for their current printings and for the lower rarity printings that are going to be released at the end of May. But with that being said, here are some of the cards that you absolutely should not buy right now unless you have a very specific reason. So the top cards that you should not buy because they're being reprinted in Rarity Collection 2 are going to be, first off, the Solemn Brigade, including Judgment, Strike, and Warning. Some of the Purely cards are being reprinted as well, specifically Purely, My Friend Purely, and Purely Pretty Memory. Droll and Lockbird and Fantastical Dragon Phantasme are having at least their alt arts being reprinted, and both of these cards are pretty expensive for hand traps right now. And that's because they're good cards. But if you're a budget player debating on buying them right now, I would wait because in a few weeks they'll be significantly cheaper. And I think the card that you should wait the most on is going to be Access Code Talker. This is probably going to be the single most expensive card being reprinted in this set. And if you're thinking about getting Access Code today, I would wait, because in a few weeks, I'm sure a super rare Access Code Talker will be less than $1. In the meantime, just play Borrelsword Dragon instead. But those are just some of the cards that have been confirmed for the set. We know that there are 35 that have been confirmed right now out of a very likely 79 spots, which means we have 44 more cards that are not known if they're going to be in this set or not. While I won't be giving you my full spoiler list for what I expect to be in Rarity Collection 2, I'll be saving that for another video releasing next week, I will be giving you 5 cards that I think are very likely to be reprinted, and for that reason you should not be picking them up for now. The first card that you should not buy is going to be Crossout Designator. There are currently 2 printings to this card, both of them in Megatons. It's also a card that was trending down in price until the Fire deck started being very prominent in the format, because those decks are really utilizing Crossout Designator very well to stop the mirror match, but also to stop opposing hand traps. If you aren't playing exactly a Fire deck, I would recommend holding off until the release of Rarity Collection 2 because I'm very confident that it gets released in that set. Linkuriboh is another card that I think is a very high likelihood of being reprinted in Rarity Collection 2. It's a card that's been out for about 6 years now and has very few printings as well. It's gotten pretty pricey and is seeing play in almost every deck because level 1 monsters are so strong today. It's such a strong card that some players are even calling for it to be banned. Now while I wouldn't go that far, if they're thinking that, then Konami probably wants to actually reprint it before they consider banning it to cash in on how good of a card it actually is. Garura Wings of Resonant Life is also another card that is very likely to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2. It's arguably the second best super polymerization target of this current format after Muddragon of the Swamp, which was reprinted in Rarity Collection 1. Now I know that Garura is still a relatively new card being released in Power of the Elements and once again in the 2023 Megatons, but considering that that has been now 8 months old, I think it's very likely we see Garura come out in a multi-rarity set like Rarity Collection 2. But honestly, if Muddragon of the Swamp had not been reprinted in Rarity Collection 1, I wouldn't expect Garura to be reprinted as well. And the reason why is because Muddragon had just received a common OTS printing, so why reprint it so soon? I think it's very likely that Garura gets that reprint as well because the card is also reaching almost $20 in price for the secret rare. Another card I expect to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2 is going to be none other than Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. This card also has 2 printings, one in the 2020 Megatons and another in the 2022 Megatons. When Rarity Collection 2 comes out, it's about 20 months since the release of the last time we had Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, which means that it's been a long time. It's been almost 2 years. And the fact that Dragoon is no longer really part of the metagame right now gives it an advantage to being added into this set because it's not at the forefront of the game. But it does one other thing. It also means that more casual players who really like Dark Magician, Red Eyes, and more anime adjacent cards are going to have a big field day with getting access to a quarter-century version of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon that can compete with the Starlight Rare version. And the last card I'm going to be talking about for this specific section is going to be Kashtira Fenrir. And the reason why is because while I do believe it could definitely be reprinted in the 25th Anniversary Rarity Collection 2, I also believe it's a very likely hit to potentially be hit on the limited list in the next couple of months as well. It only has 2 accessible printings, the first of which being in, I believe it was Darkwing Blast as an ultra rare, and the second being in the 2023 Megatons, and then it does have a third one as an OTS Ultimate Rare, but that's not in circulation anymore and should be very hard to find. Now, while the card itself is still very strong, it's not seeing play in every deck, and I think for that reason, Konami wants to actually reprint it to allow players to have more access to it as well, before they potentially ban it because the card is very oppressive. Being a free search, trading very favorably with the opponent is a really strong option. It is one of the better cards in the game today, even if it doesn't see a lot of play. And compared to Rarity Collection 1, we don't have too many really good meta staples in Rarity Collection 2 just yet that are still very viable in the format today. And Fenrir kind of fits that bill. So I want to add it into the set and hopefully Konami does that, and eventually they end up limiting the card to 1 or 2 copies. But now let's move on to cards that you shouldn't buy because of potential hits to the ban list, whether directly or indirectly. Starting off with Kashtira Fenrir and Linkuriboh. Both of these cards are definitely possibilities to be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, but it's also very likely they eventually get hit on the ban list. Now I personally, if I was Konami, would wait until after Rarity Collection 2 to release these cards and then hit them on the ban list after that, because a lot of the player base is very frustrated with them, and that's an understandable opinion. So as I realize that my lighting has been messed up for this entire video, I'm going to talk about the next card that I think you should not buy, and that's going to be Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils. This card was released back in Age of Overlord, and I believe it was October or November of 2023, and the card is fantastic. What it does for an individual card for the Snake Eye or Snake Eye Fire King strategy, or honestly any strategy that utilizes the Diabellstar engine, is insane. It offers a great 1-card starter and offers options for recovery as well. it's definitely a card that eventually will be hit on the ban list, just like we saw in the OCG. But also because Wanted has a bigger chance of being hit on the ban list in general, probably to 1 or maybe even 2 copies, I think if you're going to be playing a fire deck, sure, go for it, but if you're expecting to pick up Wanted for another reason, I would highly recommend against it. And the price of Wanteds in general has gone down significantly. At one point it was like $120 for 1 copy of the card, and now you can get 3 copies for about $150 total. If players are selling their copies of Wanted for less than half of its peak price point, there's gotta be a reason behind it, and I think the reason why is going to be ban list fears. Now on the other hand is Snake Eye Ash. Now Snake Eye Ash is a very inexpensive card right now, it's only about $1. But for a card itself that is going to be expected to be put to 1, maybe even 2 copies, I don't think it should be on this list for a reason. And that's going to be that if you end up buying this card here and it does get hit to 1 or semi-limited or even banned, you've only invested about $2 to $3 on it, so I would highly recommend picking it up just in case the engine doesn't get hit. But if it does, the investment wasn't too significant. But I do recommend not buying a copy of Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. Now listen, Albion is a crazy card. It is a very strong option for branded players. It allows them to play around evenly matched by giving your opponent a monster card in the draw phase, which means that they can't actually use the evenly matched to blow up your entire board. But it also is what allows the branded decks to lock their opponent with Gimmick Puppet Nightmare and essentially FTK. But it also gives branded one of its biggest advantages against fire decks, and that's specifically because Albion can't be targeted, and almost every single effect in the fire decks this format actually targets, which means it's very hard to out unless they have something like the Raging Phoenix to attack over it. I personally don't expect it to be reprinted until at least the Megatins if it makes it that far, but a lot of players are calling for Albion the Sanctifier Dragon to be banned, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And the last card that I recommend you shouldn't buy because of ban list fears is going to be Transaction Rollback. Not because rollback itself is going to be hit on the ban list, but because Big Welcome Labyrinth I think is a prime target. If on this ban list they decide to hit decks like Snake Eye or Fire King, there are going to be some decks that need to rise up to meet the meta, and one of those decks is going to be Labyrinth. So I think they're also going to weaken Labyrinth by potentially limiting or semi-limiting Big Welcome Labyrinth, which is going to be right now one of the best targets for Transaction Rollback. And if Labyrinth is going to continue to drop out of the format and see less play, it's very likely that Transaction Rollback is also going to be reduced in price as well. And that's all I have for cards that shouldn't be bought specifically for ban list fears. But now let's move on to talk about cards that shouldn't be bought specifically because of potential reprints in other sets or for miscellaneous reasons. The first card I want to talk about is going to be a 2-parter, and that's going to be Heatwave and Trident Dragion. These are 2 cards that are both pretty old right now. The last time we've had reprints to these cards, outside of a Speed Duel reprint, was like 10 years ago. The fact that Heatwave has 2 Speed Duel prints and 1 TCG print as a rare from I believe it was Star Strike Blast means it's pretty likely going to be reprinted eventually, likely in an OTS pack. Heatwave is a card that you activate at the start of your main phase 1, and basically what it does is neither you nor your opponent can normal or special summon effect monsters until your next draw phase. So in decks that want to OTK, you activate Heatwave and you basically skip your opponent's turn, giving you what's likely a free chance to OTK your opponent. Trident Dragion also has 3 printings. The first 2 come from Raging Battle as an ultra rare and as an ultimate rare, and the final one is a secret rare from the Legendary Collection 5Ds, which last was printed in 2014, so it's been 10 years for this card. Basically, Trident Dragion allows the Tenpai Dragon deck to OTK very easily. Now, Tenpai Dragon is an archetype that's being released at the end of April in Legacy of Destruction, and it's one of the most highly anticipated archetypes since basically Snake Eye. Both Trident Dragion and Heatwave are seeing a lot of play in Tenpai Dragon, which is doing very well for itself over in the OCG and is expected to do very well in the TCG too. Now, these cards aren't mandatory to play for this strategy, and if you really want to pick up the Tenpai Dragon deck, you can do so without having access to these cards. But your deck will be weaker. However, I do believe that it's very likely we get these cards reprinted in either an OTS pack or a random reprint set coming in the next few months. So for that reason, I would recommend holding off on picking up Heatwave and Trident Dragion for the time being. Next up, for cards that I don't think you should buy, I would recommend not buying the Dragon Rulers. Now, if you don't know what the Dragon Rulers are, they're a set of water, earth, fire, and wind monsters that are level 7 dragons that allow them to just swarm the field very quickly and have very powerful effects. They were definitely some of the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh cards of their era and some of the strongest of all time, but they've lost a lot of their power. As of right now, Tempest, Blaster, Redox are all at 1 copy, and Tidal is our last one, which is still banned currently, but the OCG did just get it back. which means I do believe that eventually in the near future, the TCG will as well, meaning that all 4 Dragon Rulers will be released. And I think to celebrate, the TCG is going to reprint these cards at higher rarities in a nice reprint set, which means that I would recommend holding off, especially on the higher rarity versions. Now, if you want to pick up an original printing of this card as a rare, then by all means go for it. That's not going to be for everyone though, because some people want their shiny cardboard. But we've also seen that a lot of players are very interested in the Time Wizard format, and one of the Time Wizard formats that is seeing a lot of popularity right now, other than of course Edison, Goat, Hat, even Meadowlands, is going to be the Dragon Ruler format. And for that reason, it's very possible that players will get to play this at a YCS event. I even think it's possible that all 4 of these cards get reprinted inside of Rarity Collection 2, but I'm not holding my breath for it. Don't buy the Sprite cards, specifically Sprite Blue, Gigantic Sprite, and Sprite Starter. These 3 cards came out in Power of the Elements, which has been confirmed to be reprinted inside the 2024 Megatins, releasing probably in September. Now, while it is a long way away, these cards aren't really doing anything in the meta today. So unless you're planning on playing a Sprite-based deck, I wouldn't recommend picking them up because they are pretty pricey still. And the last card I want to talk about is going to be Lullaby of Obedience, which is another card that's seeing a lot of play in fire-based decks, and pretty much exclusively in fire-based decks, because they're using it as a way to be able to get them a copy of a Snake Eye Ash or Poplar, for example, or whatever the case they might need to be able to start their plays or potentially even steal a hand trap out of their opponent's deck. It's a card that will likely get reprinted soon because of the popularity it has right now, but also because it hasn't even been printed since 2018. And no, I don't want to hear about the 25th anniversary Kaiba briefcase. That product just does not make sense for the casual player right now. And yes, while it was technically reprinted in there, it is a bit more expensive than other copies. Honestly, just hold off for the reprint. As a card, it is very good, but it's seeing only play in fire decks right now, and even then, it's debatable if you want to include it in every single fire list. And that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Now let me know down in the comments below, what are some other cards you think players should wait before buying? Also, if you want to see a video on the cards that you should be buying right now, then make sure to smash the like button. Once we hit 250 likes, I'll bring you that video as well. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more amazing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join the Discord server, both are linked in the description. And if you're buying any cards on TCG Player, check out the description as well for my affiliate link, it helps me out whenever you make a purchase. And if you want to support the channel even more than that, all you have to do is click the join button to learn about becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.